Your belief is the signal you send to the universe, and the size of that belief shapes the size of the results you receive. If you believe small, you will get crumbs. But if you dare to believe big, mountains move, doors unlock, and the very fabric of reality bends to meet your vision. There is a hidden power within you, silent and waiting, ready to explode into action the moment you stop doubting and start believing. Most people live their lives trapped in cages built from fear, comparison, and the opinions of others. But not you. Not if you choose to believe differently. When you believe big, the obstacles don't disappear, they just become irrelevant. Your focus sharpens, your courage grows, and the world begins to arrange itself in ways that seem impossible to those who play small. The size of your belief becomes the blueprint of your destiny. You stop asking how and start saying yes. Yes to the vision. Yes to the risk. Yes to the voice inside that refuses to settle. People will call it luck, fate, even magic. But deep down, you'll know the truth. It was your belief that commanded the impossible. Every great transformation began with someone bold enough to believe, even when there was no proof, no evidence, and no applause. So believe bigger. Dream like it's already yours. Act like the universe is your partner. Because when you believe big, life has no choice but to obey. Your belief sets the limits. Think bigger and the boundaries vanish. The size of your fate determines the size of your breakthrough. Doubt kills dreams. Belief resurrects them into reality. Big belief turns resistance into results and fear into fire. When your inner vision is massive, the outer world must comply. Your belief sets the limits. Think bigger and the boundaries vanish. It all begins with the way you see yourself and what you think is possible. If you believe you're meant for something greater, the world begins to reflect that belief back to you. But if you accept limitations, if you settle for less, then your life becomes a mirror of that internal acceptance. Most people are not held back by circumstances, they are held back by their own beliefs. Every achievement, every breakthrough, every transformation starts in the mind. It's not about what others see in you, it's about what you allow yourself to see in you. When you think small, you play small, act small, and settle for small. But the moment your thoughts grow, your actions stretch to meet them. And as your actions expand, so do the possibilities around you. You stop waiting for permission and start creating opportunities. You stop asking a can I and start declaring I will. The boundaries that once surrounded you begin to dissolve, not because the world changed, but because your belief that the mind is the greatest battlefield and belief is your weapon. Those who achieve the extraordinary are not necessarily more talented or better equipped. They just believe they could. They believed in the face of failure, in the silence of support, and in the shadow of doubt. They didn't wait for someone to validate their dream. They validated it themselves. They believed big enough to act boldly, even when it scared them. They believed big enough to persist when nothing made sense. They believed big enough to sacrifice comfort in pursuit of a calling. That level of belief doesn't just change goals. It changes lives. You start to attract people, situations, and opportunities that align with your new level of thinking. What once seemed far off begins to feel within reach. The things you used to fear shrink in the presence of your rising belief. Your confidence builds not from results, but from your decision to think bigger than your current reality. Belief is not wishful thinking. It's a commitment, a relentless choice to see potential instead of problems, to focus on the outcome, not the obstacle. Think of to see yourself as already becoming the version of you that you know is possible. That belief creates motion, and motion creates momentum. The moment you begin to think bigger, you move different. You walk with intention, speak with power, and act with clarity. Your energy shifts, and so does the way the world responds to you. Challenges become stepping stones. Rejections become redirections. Delays become divine lessons, all because your belief grew stronger than your excuses. And the stronger it gets, the more unstoppable you become. Not because the road gets easier, but as you get bolder, people will wonder how you did it. How you managed to rise from nothing, to keep going when others quit, to break through when you had every reason to break down. They'll look for the strategy, the shortcut, the system, but the truth will always go back to one thing, what you believed. You believed that your life could be more. You believed that your story could be rewritten. You believed that your vision was worth the risk, and that belief pushed you to go further than fear ever thought you could. You didn't wait for signs. You became the sign. You didn't wait for open doors. You built your own doors. You didn't follow paths. You created your own path by believing it existed. Think about the moments when you doubted yourself, when you felt small, when you convinced yourself to give up before you even tried. Now imagine how your life would look if you had believed bigger in those moments. If you had trusted your instincts instead of your insecurities, if you had leaned into faith instead of fear, that version of you is still possible. That life is still waiting, but it demands a shift in belief, a shift from limitation to liberation, from scarcity to abundance, from survival to power, from a maybe to a definitely. When you think bigger, you take yourself out of the box the world tried to put you in. You stop living on default and start living on design. You take full control of your mindset, your emotions, your habits, and your future. That's the true power of belief. It turns potential into progress and imagination into impact. It doesn't just free you. It unleashes you. The size of your faith determines the size of your breakthrough. Faith is not something abstract or invisible. It is the force that drives every decision you make, every risk you take, every step you commit to in the direction of your dreams. If your faith is small, your actions will shrink accordingly. But when your faith is bold, when it burns through your doubts and speaks louder than your fears, the results it attracts are equally bold. Most people want breakthroughs without belief. They want transformation without trust. They want success without surrendering to the process of becoming. But that's not how real breakthroughs happen. They are born from moments when everything in you says give up, but your faith whispers keep going. They rise from the ashes of what once looked like failure because you refused to stop believing that something greater was coming. Faith is the fire in the dark, the vision in the void, the foundation under your feet when the ground starts shaking. It's not a feeling, it's a decision. A choice to trust the unseen more than the visible. A choice to move forward when nothing around you is giving permission. A choice to speak life when everything around you feels like loss. The size of your breakthrough is waiting for the size of your faith to match it. If you only believe for average, you'll live in an average. But if you have the courage to believe for greatness, to believe for change, to believe for the extraordinary, then you create a space for it to arrive. So, stretch your inner world wide enough to receive something your old mindset could never contain. You elevate your internal thermostat so that when success shows up, you don't sabotage it. You rise to meet it. Breakthroughs don't arrive just because you want them. They respond to preparation, persistence, and a belief that doesn't die in the waiting. Faith gives you the strength to act before you see results, to plant seeds in barren soil, to speak victory while walking through a storm. Every breakthrough has a birthing place. My place is inside you. It doesn't come from outside approval or external validation. It begins when you decide you are worthy of more, and you trust the process even when you don't understand it. Some people quit right before the breakthrough because their faith runs out at the edge of their comfort. But those who push through, who keep believing even when their circumstances scream otherwise, those are the ones who see what others call impossible. You are not waiting on life. Life is waiting on your belief. Your breakthrough is not locked away somewhere far off in the future. It's already moving towards you the moment your faith aligns with it. When you believe deeply, consistently, fiercely, the energy around you begins to change. You attract people, resources, and clarity that weren't there before. You start to feel pulled rather than pushed. Pulled by something higher, something rooted in purpose, something anchored in unshakable conviction. And the greater your faith, the greater the force behind your every move. You stop second-guessing, you stop hesitating, you start building momentum that compounds into massive transformation. Faith doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means you move anyway. It means you trust that every delay has purpose. Every detour has a lesson. Every hardship has hidden preparation. Your faith builds resilience. It forges character. It sharpens your focus and humbles your ego. It doesn't always change the situation immediately, but it always changes you. And the moment you change, your world starts to shift. That's where the breakthrough starts, not in the external, but in your internal agreement with the possibilities your faith allows. There are people with less talent, fewer resources, smaller networks who are experiencing massive breakthroughs because they believed without limits. They didn't wait for perfect timing or ideal conditions. They took their small beginnings and wrapped them in big faith. They stopped negotiating with fear and started moving in alignment with faith. They showed up again and again, not because they felt certain, but because they trusted that showing up would eventually lead to elevation. Your breakthrough is already coded into your journey. It's waiting for you to show up in full belief. It's not about what you've seen before. It's about what you're willing to believe beyond what you've seen. When you elevate your faith, you expand your capacity. You stop playing safe and start playing significant. You stop chasing what's probable and start expecting what's possible. You become a magnet for miracles, a vessel for greatness, a testimony in motion. Your life stops being ordinary because your belief refuses to shrink. Everything begins to change, not because the world suddenly became easier, but because your faith became unshakable. That faith becomes your identity, your fuel, your compass. It leads you through storms, lifts you from setbacks, and guides you straight into the breakthrough you once only dreamed about. Doubt kills dreams. Belief resurrects them into reality. Doubt is the silent assassin of potential, a quiet voice that questions your worth, your power, your ability to become more than you are. It doesn't shout, it whispers, slowly poisoning every big idea, every bold desire, every beautiful possibility that tries to rise inside you. It tells you you're not ready, not capable, not enough. And most people listen. They adjust their goals downward. They shrink their voice. They delay their action. They bury their dreams alive and call it being realistic. But belief is different. You need to act on inspiration rather than hesitation. You need to trust your vision more than you trust your limits. Every time you choose belief, you reclaim another piece of yourself. You begin to move from survival to significance, from scarcity to possibility, from silence to strength. Doubt will still try to whisper, but belief will roar louder. And in that roar, your dreams come back to life and begin to rise with you. Big belief turns resistance into results and fear into fire. There is a force inside you that responds not to fear, but to the boldness of your belief. When you believe in yourself with unshakable conviction, everything that once stood in your way begins to lose its power. The things that felt heavy become stepping stones. The fear that once held you hostage becomes fuel. Resistance is no longer a wall. It becomes a weight that builds your strength. And people who move mountains don't do so with perfect plans. They do it with unstoppable belief. It's not about having all the answers. It's about showing up with a spirit so fierce that nothing can push it back down. The moment your belief grows larger than your fear, you step into a new dimension of power. You no longer need to avoid resistance. You start welcoming it. You stop seeing fear as the enemy and start using it as confirmation that you're on the right track. Most people turn around at the first sign of resistance. They slow down when things get uncomfortable. But big belief changes how you see pressure. You recognize it as preparation. You recognize it as a signal that something powerful is forming, something worth fighting for, something worth becoming. And every time fear tries to pull you back, belief reminds you of why you started. The reason most people stay stuck is not because they lack skills, resources, or talent. It's because they've never trained their mind to believe beyond what they see. They've allowed fear to make decisions and resistance to set the pace. But those who believe big create momentum in the middle of resistance. They rise higher because their belief lifts them above their excuses. They keep showing up because their vision is more powerful than their discomfort. They don't just chase goals, they become the kind of person who attracts them. That transformation begins the moment you stop shrinking your belief to match your circumstances and start stretching your belief to match your calling. There's something magnetic about big belief. It shifts your entire state of being. You start to walk differently. You speak with authority. You make decisions faster. You stop asking for opinions and start trusting your inner guidance. You don't wait for a clear path. You create one. Resistance doesn't paralyze you. It reminds you of the strength you're building, and fear, instead of stopping you, starts sharpening your clarity. You stop negotiating with fear and start using it as a map. Every place that feels intimidating becomes a signal to go deeper, to step forward, to expand your capacity. Big belief doesn't just change your outcomes, it changes your identity. You start seeing yourself as the kind of person who doesn't fold under pressure. You start holding yourself to a higher standard, not because of perfection, but because of purpose. You become someone who leads with conviction, who acts with intention, who lives with resilience. And in that process, the results start to align. The effort begins to pay off. The breakthroughs begin to appear. Not because the road became easier, but because you stopped doubting and started deciding. You decided that fear doesn't get to choose anymore. You decided that resistance doesn't get the final word. There's a fire that comes with big belief. A fire that burns away hesitation, that melts away procrastination, that ignites action. That fire becomes your edge. So it becomes the difference between waiting for the right time and creating the right moment. When you believe big, your body moves different. Your energy attracts different. You stop sitting on potential and start stepping into purpose. You stop fearing judgment and start embracing your authenticity. You stop reacting to problems and start leading with solutions. Because belief fuels vision, and vision fuels action, no one sees the belief behind the scenes. They see the success, the spotlight, the achievement. But behind every bold result was a moment when someone chose belief over fear. When someone heard the voice of doubt and answered with discipline. When someone felt the resistance and kept walking anyway. That choice, again and again, is what separates those who live in patterns from those who rise into power. It's not luck. It's not chance. It's not timing. It's belief in motion. Belief that refuses to settle. Belief that turns obstacles into opportunities. Belief says that this may be hard, but I am harder. Fear doesn't disappear. It gets quieter when belief gets louder. Resistance doesn't vanish. It gets weaker when belief gets stronger. So, your path doesn't get smoother. It becomes more meaningful when you walk it with certainty. And the certainty doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing who you are and what you're here to do. That level of clarity, that level of belief, makes you unstoppable. You start showing up in ways that shock even yourself. You start producing results that make people wonder how you did it. But you'll know the truth. You'll know it wasn't about being fearless. It was about believing big enough to do it scared, to do it tired, to do it tired, to do it unsure. But to do it anyway, again and again, until fear gave up and results showed up. Your reality will always rise to meet the level of your belief. What you accept as possible, you begin to invite. What you allow in your mind, you begin to manifest in your life. Every outcome is shaped first by the inner blueprint you've built through your thoughts, your words, your expectations. If you believe you're destined for average, your actions will unconsciously align with average. If you believe you're here to rise, to lead, to impact, then every cell in your body starts moving in agreement with that truth. It's not magic, it's alignment. Your life expands in proportion to how deeply and how consistently you believe in what's possible for you. Small belief shrinks your capacity. It dims your creativity. It limits your voice. It traps you in cycles that feel safe but keep you stuck. People don't stay in the same place because they lack potential. They stay because their belief system convinces them to adjust their dreams downward to match their fear. They wait for life to prove something is possible before they fully commit. But belief doesn't work like that. It doesn't wait for evidence. It becomes the evidence. When you carry belief like a torch, you light the way forward, not just for yourself, but for everyone. Watching people can feel when you truly believe in yourself. It shows in your energy. It shows in the way you speak about your future. It shows in how you handle setbacks, how you walk into uncertainty, how you keep choosing hope when everything else tells you to quit. That's what makes belief powerful. It becomes contagious. It spreads into your work, your relationships, your environment. It inspires others to believe bigger too. It breaks the illusion that your limitations are facts. It reminds you that most of what holds you back lies in your thoughts, not in your reality. And the moment you shift those thoughts, you begin to shift everything else around you. Your belief sets the standard. It tells the world how to treat you. It tells your dreams how welcome they are. It tells the future how committed you are to creating it. If you hesitate, the world reflects hesitation. If you doubt, the opportunities you want will stay just out of reach. But when you lead with clarity and courage, when you declare with certainty that what you desire is already yours in spirit, then the world begins to respond in ways you can't predict. People show up. Ideas flow. Resources appear. Not because of luck, but because your belief made space for it. There are two versions of you, the one shaped by fear and the one shaped by belief. Every day, you choose which one to become. Fear says shrink, stay small, play safe. Belief says rise, expand, step into your power. One holds you back, the other pulls you forward. The more you practice choosing belief, the more natural it becomes. You stop defaulting to doubt. You start leaning into faith. You begin to trust that the vision inside you is not random. It's a preview of what's possible when you align with who you truly are. And that alignment doesn't happen by accident. It's a discipline, a decision, commitment to think higher, feel deeper, act bolder when you believe big, you stop needing permission. You stop asking, "Am I ready?" And you start declaring, "I'm already becoming." You start acting like the version of you who already has what you want. You speak like them. You think like them. Hi, you carry yourself like them. That identity shift creates a gravitational pull between you and the future you desire. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop hoping and start knowing. Oh, you stop wishing and start walking in the direction of the life that was always meant for you. Belief doesn't erase challenges. It transforms how you respond to them. Instead of falling apart, you dig deeper. Instead of giving up, you double down. Instead of questioning your worth, you reconnect to your vision. You understand that obstacles are not punishments. They are proof that you're growing. They are invitations to rise, to get sharper, to evolve. And your belief is what keeps you grounded in that truth when the path feels hard. Feels hard. It reminds you that everything you're walking through is shaping you for the very thing you asked for. The pressure isn't there to break you. It's there to build you what you believe. You begin to embody. What you embody, you begin to express. What you express, you begin to experience. That's the chain reaction belief creates. It turns invisible faith into visible results. And the more you walk in that awareness, the more intentional you become about what you allow into your mind. You protect your belief like it's sacred, because it is. It is. It's the gateway to every breakthrough, every blessing, every next level that's waiting for you to stop doubting and start declaring you weren't made to live in doubt. You weren't made to question your own power. You weren't made to shrink just to make others comfortable. You were made to believe so boldly that everything around you begins to adjust to the size of your conviction. You were made to set a new standard for what's possible, to speak life where others speak lack, where others speak lack, to hold the vision even when the reality looks completely opposite. That kind of belief creates change. That kind of belief creates legacy. That kind of belief is what transforms ordinary moments into defining ones. And when you live from that belief daily, your reality begins to reflect everything you once only imagined, imagined.